All right, cleaning my data part 2. That's where we are, where I last left off previously on cleaning your data. Whoa, the suspense was killing you, I know. I had just retrieved all the data from Firebase, and I looked at it by anonymous user ID, how many entries had been submitted by each user. And I have a suspicion that some of these that submitted a lot of entries maybe wasn't actually a person doing it manually, and maybe like a bot or something flooding the database. So let's try to investigate that and see what we can figure out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to visualize the data. I could visualize it by user ID. There's so many things I could do. But let's think about it. So there are how many labels? Let me think about this. OK, this is my sketch. I know what the labels are. So let me just let me just set up a variable called data by, color by label. And this will be an object. And the object will have empty arrays for each one of the labels. So there was bluish. I should have a list of this somewhere. Greenish. I'm doing this manually. I could have actually pulled the labels from the database, but this will be simpler. Greenish, pink-ish. I'm not doing this in any particular order. Grayish, reddish. What am I missing? Purple-ish. There was a brownish. If I go to my crowdsource color, reddish, greenish, bluish, orangish. Did I do orange? I don't think I did orange. Orange. Orange-ish. Purplish, grayish, brownish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm missing one. Blue, green, pink, gray. This is not a very systematic way to do this. Red, green, blue, orange, purple, but yellowish. I didn't do yellowish. Okay, yellowish. Now, while I am looping through the data, which I did in the previous video, I'm going to not worry about this users by count thing right now. I will come back to that later. What I want to do is, I do want this. So I want to look at each data point. And I want to look at the RG. So I want to look at the label. And I want to say color by label. And then I want to record.label push. And so I'm going to create a color. Let color equal, I'll use the p5 color function to say record.r, record.g, record.b. Color by label push color. And now what I should have, and I'm really risking breaking the console here, is I should have all the RGB values listed by the label. So let's look at that. Oops, I'm in the wrong sketch. Right? So we can see there's 1,000 blues, 1,600, there's only 235 grays. So one thing that's also important about what I've done with my data set here is I don't have a uniform amount of data points by label. I have many more green ones. And actually, Eric in the patron group made a point that the way the colors are picked, the way my random number generator works, you're going to be more greenish looking colors, which is sort of interesting to think about. But at the very least, what I can do now is I can just draw all of the colors. So I'm trying to think of what I probably want to do, like little rectangles in a P5 canvas maybe. So let me add create canvas. And let's make it 400 by 400. And let's do just one. Let's just start with bluish. And I'm going to say for let I equal 0, I is less than, so let's see, I'm going to say let blues equal color by label bluish. And I'm going to look at all of those. And let's start with an X. Let's start with a Y. Let's say fill blues index I. And then let's draw a rectangle at x, y that's 10, comma 10. We'll increase x by 10. And if y is greater than or equal to width, then we will reset x back to 0 and increase y by 10. Now this isn't very, again, I'm not being that thoughtful about this, but in theory, I should see now, when I run this, all the blues. Now why did it not wrap around? Oh, if x is greater than width. And I want to say no stroke. And I could sort, I probably would want to sort these too. I could sort them by like brightness. So we can see here, look at this. These are all the blues that were submitted to the database. So, you know what, I kind of don't mind that the data has some noise in it. I mean, big deal. The point of this is to crowdsource it and maybe training the model, if there's enough data, it will sort of filter out the noise. But, you know, and the question is, why is this here? Why is this here? What should I do about that? Let's just look at some other ones. Let's look at red. You can see, OK. What's interesting is I think these are in the order by which they were submitted. There probably was a time period here where some like bad data was entered. Let's look at green, because green has the most, right? It's pretty good. So what do I do? Oh boy, what do I do about this? All right, so two great points just came up in the chat right now. One is Luke B writes, pretty good to have the outliers to encourage prevention of overfitting the neural network. So this is actually true in, one thing you have to watch out for is that your model, the model that I'm going to train to do this color classification, what if it just works so well with the training data that it doesn't work so well with new data? And having a bit of noise in the training data can actually help with that. Miayem Sumi writes, make it so clicking on a pixel prints who did it, the user ID, that is, and also maybe highlights all the other ones with the same user ID. That I love. So let's add that. That's not going to be the easiest thing, but it's worth doing. Let me see if I can add that. So, OK, so if I click the mouse, mouse pressed, I can sort of, like, I would be, in theory, mouse x divided by 10, and j would be, right? This is where I'm clicking. I'm looking for the I and j, not the x and y, like sort of like the I and j of what I'm clicking on. Mouse y divided by 10. And then I should be able to get the index then by saying I plus j times, and then the width divided by 10. Again, I really, really, really should be using variables for these numbers like 10 and putting in variables for like columns and rows. But let's just try this right now. Let's try then saying console.log. And so let me make a, I'm going to call this color, I'm going to call this like label. I'm just going to call this label. And I'm going to, let's go with bluish to start again. So I'm going to use here color by label, and let's make color by label. Color by label already is a global variable. So I'm going to say console.log. OK, so let data equal color by label, that label. And then I should be able to console log data index. I think this will be right. I might have made some mistakes here. Let's see what happens. All right, let me click here. All right, so I got something. So one thing that's like kind of unfortunate is, I don't have the user ID. I don't have the user. So I got the color, but I'm not actually storing the full data thing. Oh yeah, so color by label. This is what I need to do. I want color by label actually to store the whole record. We don't actually want to store the color. Let's store the whole record. Then when I visualize it, I can just ask for the RGB values. right? Because then, when I click on something, this is now that entry. So I can see, like, right, if I click on this, we can see, look at this. This user, right, I'm clicking on these, they're all the same user. This user YGDQ seems to have some faulty data. So I could filter out this user. I could do something nice where, like, as I'm hovering, I highlight everything, but I think I'm not going to go that far. I'll let anybody who wants to contribute I'll let you try that on your own maybe. But so let me make a list here of users that I might want to filter out. Whether I'm happy to have the noise or not, that's a question, but let's let me just make this a little smaller. It's a little harder for you to see it, but I think it's going to be easier in terms of space. Okay, so let's look at a few more that are maybe like clearly not good. Same user. It's all that same user. I haven't found enough. Let's look up here. Different user. So this user also looks like it maybe has some bad data. Oops. Let's look at a different color. Let's look at what was like there was very little of, grayish. This user is now suspect. You know, the thing is, a user might have misclicked. So unless I see it consistently, yeah, I'm not going to. A user could have misclicked. All right. So you get the idea. OK, so you get the idea. Now, there's so many ways that I could be more thoughtful about this and add more features to work on cleaning the data. But let's just say for right now, and people are suggesting, like, I could algorithmically, like, I could actually evaluate the numbers and see, like, compute the hue and see if the hue matches the label. But I specifically do not want to do that. Because what I specifically want from this is this idea of human perception of color, and I don't want to use math. Because I could create my own data set with math of, like, putting colors into certain buckets. And in a way, I don't even want to do what I just did right here, which is eliminate certain users. And I probably should just visualize what I should do with these users now is actually, let me do this. What I'm going to do with these users now is I'm actually just going to look at all of their entries and see. So let's add that as one more thing. You can stop watching this video and just go on, because I'm going to build the machine learning model in future videos. But if you want to keep watching, let's do one more thing. Like, let's take this user. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to comment out this drawing thing that I'm doing. And I want to create I want to say color data by user. And I'm going to make that an array. And I just want to say if record user ID equals a particular user, then I want to say user data. And I could build an interface to do all this. It would be so much better. But I don't really have time to do all that in this particular series. So that might be an exercise you do for yourself. User data.push the record. And then down here, I could use this exact same algorithm. Oh, but you know what? I don't want to do it this way. What I want to do, I'm going to use DOM elements now. I think I'm going to say for let color let entry, it's an entry like of user data. I'm going to say create a div. I'm going to just make a div, and then I'm going to say div. And actually, let me create a div with entry.label in it. So let's just try this. Whoops, not the string. And let me get rid of the canvas. So these are all These are all of this particular user's entries. Maybe I should sort them by, let's sort them by the label. So let's say user data, sort A, comma B, return A dot label greater than B dot label. So this is, whoops. Oh, and I don't need to say return if I use the arrow syntax. I'm really just off the deep end here in this video. I think this is right. That should sort it. Yes, there we go. So we can see now it's, that's weird. Just pausing for a second, there's a great comment in the chat from Sam D. Could we separate out the different things into functions by color, by user, by whatever classifier, rather than commenting out lots of stuff? Yes, this would be an absolutely great thing to do. So I'm going to publish this, and I would love to get user comments and user submissions of like making a nice interface for this. But I'm trying to figure out why it didn't sort this right now. Okay, these are strings. So this is going to give me a true or false, but the sort function wants like a negative or positive number. So I'm actually just going to break this out. I know I could do this with those ternary operators, but I'm just going to say if return 1, else return -1, and this should do the trick, right? So let's take a look at this now. There we go. Bluish, greenish, reddish. So we can see this is now sorted by that particular user. And then all I need to do is add, I need to make something that color box. I guess I could make that a div that lives inside. Color box size. 10, 10, and then color box style. And these are all P5 DOM functions. Background color, now this would be a great time to use those template literals, because what I want to do is say RGB entry.r entry.g. And, what happened? Entry.b. Right? This is CSS for making an RGB color, I believe. Let's see how this works. What's the chance this works? Okay. Oh, but now what I want to do is say color box parent, and I want it to be inline. So how do I do that? Color box style display inline. Is that what it is? No? Well, you get the idea. And there's some of these, because you can see it's pretty inconsistent. There's just, the colors are just so wildly different that I think we can kind of say that this user we can filter out. And I could look at some of these other users now. Like, let's look at this user. Let's look at this user. Everything seems to be bluish. That doesn't look like great data. And let me look at this user. And again, I'm doing this so manually in my code. I could easily build an interface to look at all this. Grayish, grayish, greenish, greenish, brownish, bluish, bluish. Yeah, this looks too inconsistent. So, it's fine to have some. So I think we're done here. You get the point that we're not completely done, because I want to just like create a JSON file of all of the data. But, and I'll do that in the next video, because I don't know if anybody's still watching this right now. So Right, I could add some background to the text and some padding. That's a great idea. There's all sorts of way I could visualize this with if I had any sort of talent or knowledge about CSS and design. But you, the viewer, will hopefully improve this. But you can sort of see the process of looking at the data, visualizing it, and getting a sense of it. And now what I might want to do is actually like filter and save the data. And I will do that in the next video, which will be a very short one, I think.